Good morning, AWS, and welcome to the AWS Morning Brief. This episode is sponsored in part by DigitalOcean. Running a business is hard, but your cloud doesn't have to be. DigitalOcean is the cloud that offers transparent, predictable pricing, even for Kubernetes clusters, which you'd have thought was freaking impossible. You aren't going to need to go for 12 weeks of cloud school to absorb a zillion ancillary services just to be able to SSH into an instance. It's the kind of simplicity that you want out of your cloud provider. Check out DigitalOcean today at do.co/lastweek. That's do.co/lastweek. So let's find out what Amazon got up to last week, and we begin with Amazon API Gateway, or API Gateway as they pronounce it internally, allows sub-protocols on a WebSocket API connection now. So for those of you whose biggest issue with API Gateway is that it doesn't have enough features, I advise you to seek help immediately. Amazon Aurora Global Database supports read replica write forwarding. There are 3 data consistency models here that you can choose between depending upon your needs: session, global, or eventual. Now, if you couldn't possibly care less about data consistency, then the correct answer is, of course, to not use Aurora and use MongoDB instead. Amazon Connect now supports higher quality, natural-sounding text-to-speech voices. Amazon Connect release announcements still stock being written in the same old stilted corporate voice that nobody likes. Amazon Corretto for Alpine Linux now in preview. Alpine is a Linux distribution that's designed for security, simplicity, and resource efficiency. In the exact opposite direction from all of those design goals, Amazon now lets you throw an entire JVM into it. Amazon EC2 Autoscaling now supports instance refresh within autoscaling groups. Hey, replace all of the instances in my autoscaling group is a neat feature that was first proposed by the very first autoscaling group customer, probably 3 minutes after launching their first autoscaling group in May of 2009. Amazon ECS capacity providers now support delete functionality. Folks, the list of capacity providers in the console is now over 80 pages long and growing rapidly. Can we please get around to finishing that API, please? Amazon Pinpoint now supports International Long Distance Operator, or ILDO, routes to send SMS messages to India. Now there's a web server running on my phone, and my cloud provider thinks that they're a telephone. Ma Bell, if you had only lived to see this. Amazon Polly launches a child US English and TTS voice. If you think you want children, just wait until you hear one reading your AWS bill to you. Amazon RDS on VMware adds support for read replica. Amazon services on VMware are pretty exciting because they provide a sneak peek into what we'd all be dealing with if AWS had taken an alternate path and let us run the AWS cloud software in our own horrible data centers. Amazon Route 53 launches new API action to list private hosted zones associated with your Amazon VPCs. That's right, the Route 53 database now makes working with foreign keys way easier. You used to have to write a lot of custom scripts to pull this off. Amazon SES can now send notifications when the delivery of an email is delayed. That notification comes via SNS, which you can of course configure to report to you via email. And so the circle of life continues, with you getting emails about your emails. Incidentally, if you want to hear about this via my newsletter, sign up at lastweekinaws.com, and then you would be receiving an email about getting updates to your emails via email. Amazon WorkDocs refreshes the iOS app mobile UI to provide a new, simplified user experience. Now I'm just waiting for the slapdown drag-out court fight when Apple demands 30% of AWS revenues for allowing this app in their App Store. AWS Amplify Console now supports deploying and hosting web apps managed in mono-repos. This feels like a bit of a facepalm moment for the Amplify team. Post-shipping, they finally talk to a customer who uses source code repositories a bit differently than they do. This episode is also sponsored by our friends at Chaos Search. Have you heard about Chaos Search? It's a fully managed log analytics platform that leverages your Amazon S3 buckets as a data store. According to the CTO at Armor, a global cybersecurity company with more than 1,000 customers in 42 countries, Chaos Search is a critical piece of our infrastructure for processing tens of terabytes a day of our customers' log data. And at HubSpot, the engineering lead said, "We're able to process and analyze tens of terabytes a day of Cloudflare log data to identify and fend off DDoS attacks on behalf of our customers at a fraction of the cost of our previous self-hosted Elk stack." So take it from me, or take it from them, but either way, take a look at Chaos Search today at chaossearch.io. AWS App Mesh Controller for Kubernetes is now generally available. The line between overly complicated architectural diagram of your AWS environment and Kubernetes reference architecture continues to narrow. AWS App Config announces the launch of hosted configurations. Manage a configuration file yourself and supply it every time you want to update something, maybe how CloudFormation, most Lambda deployment frameworks, the Route 53 API, and a few other services work, but thankfully App Config no longer rolls that way. AWS Certificate Manager extends automation of certificate issuance via CloudFormation. Click button, receive TLS is all most of us ever wanted. Okay, that's a lie. Click button, receive security is the dream. The reality that we're stuck within is click button, receive large bill. Introducing AWS Snowcone, a small, lightweight, rugged, secure edge computing, edge storage, and data transfer device. This solves the biggest problem that the AWS Snowball Edge had that wasn't customers looking up the product name on Urban Dictionary. Specifically, when you wanted to hurl data through someone's window out of rage and/or spite in the middle of the night, you used to need a trebuchet to do it. Instead of weighing 50 pounds, the Snow Cone clocks in at only 4.5 pounds for 8 terabytes of storage, or 111 gigabytes per ounce. And if you're not calculating your storage as applied to weight metrics, you're almost certainly making better decisions than I do. AWS Data Sync can now transfer data to and from AWS Snowcone. Come on, we're behind in our number of feature releases quota for the quarter, whines the Data Sync manager, who's presumably bonused on this. Let's announce compatibility with a thing the same day as you release it. Come on, be a pal, please. Detailed cost management data is now available on AWS Console mobile application, which is a lie. Comprehensible detailed cost management data remains only available within Excel, Tableau, or various third-party services. Believe me, I should know. Introducing AWS CloudFormation Guard Preview, a new open-source CLI for infrastructure compliance. Ooh, another open-source project from AWS where the only committers are AWS employees. I bet we can change that. Line up to help if your idea of a good time is doing volunteer work for a trillion-dollar company. Amazon Builders Library, automating safe, hands-off deployments. And this is a freaking wonderful article. It's a great dive into how to safely automate deployments. Unlike most papers on the subject, this paper has no vendor solution to sell you. Because, let's not kid ourselves, Amazon's code build, code deploy, code pipeline tools do not get the job done. So it doesn't have a bias in that sense. It's just telling you how to do things sensibly and at a high level. It is worth the read. Trust me. Amazon EKS now supports EC2 Inf1 instances. By pairing machine learning instances with Kubernetes, AWS is addressing the customer pain of having way too much money to spend on nonsense. New, a shared file system for your Lambda functions. You can now mount the same file on Lambda, Fargate, and EC2 because of the magic of EFS. Let 1,000 terrible patterns bloom alongside the 4 good ones that this empowers. No word yet on accessing EFS via Lambda in terms of what it costs per gigabyte ounce. Detecting and visualizing telecom network outages from tweets with Amazon Comprehend. This is super handy. With a little bit of tweaking, it'll let you detect AWS service outages long before stop.lying.cloud is updated. And lastly, 7 awesome, that's AWS-OME, awesome ways to use AWS Chatbot. Now, I hate clickbait. They all distill down to a bunch of not directly actionable alerts. Click here to open a support case, and oh my God, is your bill going to hurt you? And that's what happened last week in AWS. I am cloud economist Corey Quinn. This is the AWS Morning Brief, and I will talk to you later this week.
This has been a Humble Pod production. Stay humble.